It was all very practical because this is the reality that he faces and he sees every day. As the Commissioner for Education in Lagos State, I see the same situation. We have we opened up our portals. We were looking for teachers, so we had 2 separate portals, primary and secondary, and over a 5-day period, 100,000 young Nigerians with qualification in education applied, and we needed 3,000. It was a very difficult decision to whittle it down. It was a very difficult decision. I was bombarded left, right, and center, young people on the streets and so on. So it worries one infinitely that there are many young people around who, some of whom have skills, but many of whom just cannot find jobs to do. And I hope that when I'm done with what I say, you see that there is a thinking, I think, in the right direction. As a previous private sector practitioner myself, this is something that has been very important to me since I became a commissioner, and I'm just sad that it took 2 years to get to this point, with only 2 years to go. So I hope that members of the private sector will insist, no matter what happens, that we go ahead and do what we need to do to ensure that young people are skilled enough to get the jobs that are available in Lagos State and stop going for jobs that are not available. So having said that, if I can have the next slide, I wanted to go through Tibet education in Lagos State, and I'll try and expand that as much as possible. Just talking about Tibet in general. Yeah, sorry, I wanted to be sure it was the right size. Talking about Tibet in general, the Ministry of Education in Lagos State is responsible for pre-tertiary vocational education. And this includes primary schools, junior secondary schools, and senior secondary schools. The thing is that if you look at Tibet in Lagos State, it's run by, post-tertiary is now run by a by a multitude, what can I say, of ministries, development agencies, and so on, including as disparate as women affairs and poverty alleviation, commerce, energy, and so on. We have other players, corporate organizations. I've seen quite a number here, professional and technical organizations. We have local governments. We have individuals. We have non-profits. So it's a very big field filled with many players, but honestly, as somebody who has watched it for a long time, with minimal impact and effect. Because many times, many of the programs that are available are just not, they are not long-term, sustainable, effective, impactful programs. For example, many people have come to me, I'm setting up vocational schools. They tend to do things like makeup, and they tend to think that is vocational education. While I accept that we are very fashionable and we do like to make up, and we do like to dress up, and we do like a lot of glitter in the morning, which is often quite disconcerting to a lot of people, that how do you wear so many sequins, and well, that's us. And so there's a market for those who actually put, who actually stone the fabrics. Still, it is not a sustainable part of the industry. And it's setting up young people for certain poverty, because the jobs are so, what they pay is so menial for these little jobs. And there are so many people doing it all over the place. So we had to think very deeply in Lagos State about this. And I'll go into that, because that's what I want to talk about, really. The thinking that has been going on, the planning, and the rollout. And I hope that if there's any way you can support us, we'll be very glad. Of course, we understand and we know why there have been so many problems with TVET over the years, but I'll go on to the next slide and talk about the situation now, the pre-tertiary TVET education provision. In early years, nothing yet, but in primary school, we have pre-vocational courses, and what we've done is that we've built a number of centers around the state and try and bus the children there. Now, if you're in Lagos, you know the problems we have with traffic. I left my house at about 6 this morning, just after 6. And I got here early and went for breakfast. But I could easily have gotten here 3 or 4 hours later as well. So the problems of busing the children back and forth is just not practical, it doesn't work, and eventually most schools just give up. And what we focus on there is mostly arts and crafts, which is good for the children, early learning in how to use their hands and their brains and so on, which is good. Then we go on to junior secondary, which we call JS 1 to 3. There we actually do pre-vocational subjects. I'm sorry I didn't finish these slides. I worked on these slides this morning, part of my breakfast in VI. So the vocational subjects that we teach there, mainly maybe things like technical drawing, early technical drawing, and so on. Again, not deep. And at secondary school level, we have 2 types of senior secondary schools. Senior secondary subjects, we have 34 or 35 trade subjects offered across the curriculum. And we also have 5 technical colleges in the state where we provide technical training in diverse courses, and that is serious, and that is, I'm sure you've used some of our products as well, but we have just 5. And like I tell people, if we had 50, it would still not be enough. Knowing the population and the growth of Lagos State, I hope we all realize that Lagos State is one state where I understand, according to UNESCO, 80 people come in per minute and never go back. So the growth of Lagos has been unbelievable. 5 years ago, we had a secondary school somewhere on the way to Badagry that had 2,000 children. Today, that school has 10,000, which is, of course, an unbelievable figure for a secondary school to have. So the growth in Lagos has been tremendous, and the educational system just hasn't grown along with it. If I can have the next slide. The challenges that we've faced in Lagos State are many. I don't want to go into the normal, you see, when you hear educationists, and I used to describe myself as an education activist, very, very critical of government. So a bit hard for me to be in government now, but, and to take the criticism that I used to be so quick to, all these things I used to say very, very quickly. Yes, the main problems that we talk about generally, access, there are not enough schools. I'll be the first to say that. Like I said, only 5 technical colleges in this state with this population of over 20 million. So how do we add, and with a huge youth bulge, and we have just 5 technical colleges, they are day schools, they are situated in what we call the Ibile, the 5 main districts of Lagos, Ibile, that's how we describe them, I think, Ikorodu, Badagry, and so on. So there are only 5. They are big schools, and there are not many students in those schools, and they're just 5. They're not boarding schools, so only children living within the environment can go to those schools. So there's that. So access, yes, there's equity, of course. We all know there are many problems with equity, boy, girl, across religious divide, but most of all, across social economic status, where poor children indeed have access to very poor quality education indeed. These are all things that we know. The normal quality issues, we have serious quality issues. Funding is inadequate. But one thing we found as the major challenge in Lagos State, apart from all these, which everybody says and which I totally agree with, relevance to the reality of the students' lives. What kind of education are we providing? At the end of their education, what are they going to do? Where are they going to go? What work is available for them? And that is why you see many students who say they don't have jobs. Like when we were looking for teachers, we have a massive problem getting teachers in physics, chemistry, biology, maths, English, geography. Would you believe it? We are hardly graduating students in geography and history. But we have a lot of people who say they did civic education. So when we send out adverts, more than half of them will say they can teach civic education, they did sociology. They are not going into those areas that we totally need in our schools for teaching. I don't talk about things I don't know much about, so I will probably not talk about technical, about industry, but I will talk about even our own field in education. We just cannot get teachers. We cannot get early years teachers. We cannot get people who specialize in primary education. We have people who did civic studies, which is an important subject, but we can't flood the schools with them. So what is the relevance of this education to that child on the streets? And if I can have the next slide. So we said, look, let's address these 2 issues. we keep on addressing things like access, equity, and I'm not here to make a lot of noise and dance about what the government is doing about building more schools, expanding existing schools, employing teachers, recruiting teachers, training. No, I won't go into all those. But we'll talk about the relevance, because that is critical. Because what we find is that at the end of everything, the student finds that he's at zero level. Even those who say they did engineering, I assure you they've never touched any equipment. I interviewed a young lady once who said she was a computer engineer. I can't claim to know much about computers, but when I asked her a simple question of, oh, you send work to the printer and it comes out garbled, what's the problem? She didn't know what the problem was. Of course, it was a software conflict and it came out garbled. She just said things like, maybe if you clean the area, maybe if you showing you that she's a computer engineer and a very, very, very basic thing like that she doesn't know. So I asked her, in your university, how many times did you work on the computer? She said, not once. And this girl learned Fortran and COBOL and things like that. Fortran, sorry. When I was in university, people were doing Fortran. So I was quite taken aback. So again, we have to address relevance. And this is when Lagos State, we said, okay, we'll address academic performance and we'll address relevance. So we have a two-pronged approach. So we'll look at general academic performance. At the present level, we are having about 68% pass in Lagos State. We are 5th in the country. People find that exciting. I find it very, very unexciting and underwhelming. We should be first. So we are going to go for first when it comes to coming out, learning outcomes, whether at primary school or at secondary school. Yeah, we're working on that. But the other side of it, we have to work on vocational education. We have to create more options for our students, because what is happening is we behave as if every child is going straight to university to read medicine, surgery, medicine, engineering, law, and so on. That's not ever going to happen in any country. And so the options that we are offering the students are severely limited, because if you do the WAEC, I tried to study the biology WAEC curriculum and the IGCSE curriculum, biology. And WAEC assumes you are on your way to becoming a PhD biology, or a doctor, or a pharmacist, or maybe a biology teacher. The IGCSE assumes you are a human being. You need to know about the natural world. You'll specialize later. It is the curriculum that we have at that level, very deep, very broad, very wide, and therefore there's a lot of shallow learning. And of course, we are limiting everything we are doing to children with a certain skill set. If I can have the next slide, please. What we are doing is we are limiting students to what I highlighted in red there. When you look at the multiple intelligences, now I'm not one of those. I know people will say multiple intelligences. Do they cover all intelligences? I agree with you, it probably doesn't. But for this purpose, what we are doing now with our educational system is we are playing to just 2 intelligences or 2 major skills. That is logical ability and numeracy. But there's a lot more than that. There are students who are going to be great at other things. And I will tell you my mantra as an educationist, it has always been, it's on the board of my bedroom. It's that there is an A star in every child. My job as an educationist is to find that A star. It need not be physics or further maths. It could jolly well be dancing, or public speaking, or technical, or GSM repairs, but I've just got to find it. And so therefore in Lagos State, we started to say, look, how do we teach to the unique competencies of each of the children that we have, rather than having this one-size-fits-all approach where we are behaving as if they're all going to go to university. First of all, the pass level is low. And even when they pass, due to financial, you remember what the previous speaker said, due to their financial circumstances, they cannot even attend Nigerian universities. We feel the school fees are low in Nigerian universities. But they have to eat, they need accommodation, they need to buy textbooks and so on. When they get to that level, they just stop. So how do we provide options in all our schools? And like my argument also says, it doesn't just have to be for the child who is not going to university. Some are going to go to university, but I like to have skilled children, even my own biological children, to be able to do other things. So I don't pay fees. I'm a retired person. I can't pay fees for anybody. So my children know they better work wherever they are going to school. So they do things like they know how to do hair. One dances professionally. So from the professional dancing, she makes money. But I'm not going to send her any money. We paid the school fees. We've done our bit. But that's not everybody can do that. No, so because many people don't believe in this. They think, can you send your own child to such a system? Absolutely. Absolutely. And while going online, I saw this analysis from the website. I've quoted it there. That talks about really the problems, the TVET ecosystem around the world. And there are some things that are true to us as well. One is, of course, underinvestment, underfunding over many, many years. The fragmental institutional landscape. There are just too many people doing it, and the varying quality. We don't have enough. We don't have standards yet to determine who's good and who's not good. And of course, there's a weak linkage between the private sector and TVET. I could go on and on. It's quite a complex slide, but I just wanted to show that there are so many factors that affect TVET. And so, if I can go to the next slide. I wanted to talk. So what we've done, like we said, is we've looked at our schools that provide general academic studies. They provide 34 trade subjects. They range from photography to marketing, to automotive engineering, animal husbandry, and fishery, and so on. But it's basically in a school where they are also doing physics, chemistry, biology, maths, and 7 or 8 other subjects. So it's not an important subject to the students, it's just another subject. It has no industry linkages, it has no work or industrial experience or industrial component, and the certification is subsumed under WAEC, which is the West African Exam Council. So it's not really usable for work or to find a job. It's more about the skill of animal husbandry, for example, rather than being an entrepreneur who is engaged in animal husbandry. So at the end, it's not serving the students much. It's giving them good knowledge about something, but not deep enough to make them, earn a living from it. So what do we do? And that's why I wanted to set the context under these circumstances. Again, let me look at our TVET schools. We have 5, like I said. They are the most successful schools that we have. This is just what they look like. They have 3 years of vocational education, 3 months of internship, come out with recognized certification, can go on to university or technical college if they want to, they gain employment, or they can start their own business. And in fact, in a recent study of graduates from these 5 colleges, within 3 years of leaving school, what are they doing? They are doing either one of these 3 things. They're in higher institution, they're earning a living, or they've set up their own little business, which of course can grow and become big, but there are only 5. Total student capacity is 8,000, and they can only take about 2,000 students per year. The available course options range from creatives to engineering to business and construction. Now, issue here is how soon can we build them? Because they have to adhere to, yeah, it's all right. You mean I have 8 minutes to go? That's okay. Oh, you distracted me. Supposed to be a secret. You did it openly. So those 4 subjects, and they offer between 12 to 16 skills. So like we said, these are can I have the next slide? They are the most successful schools that we have. So we started expanding them. We are trying to build additional ones, but like I said, they are big, they're expensive, and we have to adhere to the standards of NAPTEP. The students there too have to do all the other physics, chemistry, other subjects in addition to their area of core competence. And so we are trying to build what we call monotechnical institutions, fashion school, construction school, and so on and so forth. We are trying to build as many as we can. You know, the problem we have in Lagos, of course, is land. We can only build up now, and land is increasingly becoming more difficult to get unless it's way outside town. And the other programs that we run, skills for work, people who work and in the evening go for these programs. We have job placement assistants, and the teachers go for industrial training. So like I said, they are our most successful educational model with 91% success rate, with viable choices for students and leveraging on industry relationships. So why don't we stay with that? Next slide, next slide. The slide that has challenges. It's again because it's more science-based, very expensive, like I said, far away from where students live, and low capacity to enroll students. So, next slide. So, no, you are far from me. Please go on, go on, go on, go on. Yes. Now, if you look at this slide, this is the themes agenda of our governor, Mr. Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu. Very particular about meeting all the items on this themes agenda. We are the E, the first E, education and technology, the nexus between the two of them. And he's made many promises that we intend to keep. But for me, I don't think our agenda is just the E. I think we're everything, because you have to provide people who can work in the first item there, T, transportation, health. You are doing something about opening a school for health professionals, and so on and so forth. And anyway, if you look at the M, it says making Lagos a 21st century city. So how do you become a 21st century city? If I can have the next slide. We have to next slide, please. We have to develop the next generation of technical experts for Lagos of our dreams. And so, in 5 minutes, next slide. This is what we've really focused attention on, that what are the opportunities? How do we give our students choices? We'll work on academics, but what about vocational subjects? What do we do about them, especially with the bad press that they have that is for students who are not clever? Well, we still work on monotechnics. We'll work on the VEIs, which is Vocational Education Institution, that's working with the private sector. We'll still work on short courses, but you see what's highlighted in yellow is what I really want to go into more detail about, and that is we'll have comprehensive schools. If you go to the next slide, this is what we envisage our educational system to be like, in that going forward, in our general senior secondary schools, we will also provide vocational education. We will not wait, because right now, we have 100,000 students in GSS 3, and the carrying capacity of our 5 technical colleges is 10,000. So what if 50,000 want to do vocational training? There's nowhere to go. And so we said, look, what we'll do is we'll keep them in school. We actually tracked our students who left the system. Where are they? What are they doing? A significant proportion of them are learning trades, carpentry, hairdressing, plumbing, and things like that. So we said, we want to say, you stay with us, and we'll give you good quality training. The quality of training they are getting in these informal apprenticeship programs is very poor indeed. And again, we are consigning them in these programs, honestly, to almost certain poverty. And so we'll give you good quality training. You stay with us. And that's what we want to do. So that within the same school, there will be students on a track towards doing the academic exams, and there will be another track for vocational students. But we have to be careful to brand this. Brand it carefully so that the students will not be seen as less clever than the others. And so that's a mighty challenge for us. I won't go into details of what we are doing. We are doing many things around the branding. Possibly Mr. Governor will be the face of it, saying, look, this is good for you. Go to this kind of school. Well, I'm not a good marketer, you can see. But you know, he'll be the face of it, and we'll try and convince parents. Because even very poor parents do not want their children in technical vocational courses because they feel, oh, university is the place to go. I have 2 slides more. And I'm trying to say as much as I can, but this is what we want to do. And I now come to the most important slide, and my penultimate slide, which talks about what we want to do. We are going to have a pilot of 12 schools to test this hypothesis that in the same campus, telling them to stay and not go out. You see, these children have to earn income very early. Many of them are on the streets hawking and so on. They have to earn income early. They don't have the luxury of 3 years. So we are going to set up a training program whereby we'll have modules. You stay for 3 or 6 months, you learn something, you won't go out. And we'll have options of coming in and going out. We want it to be such like I learned in Finland, that opening one choice doesn't close other choices. So if you want, you can come back. You can finish 6 months with us, go out and work. But even while you are with us, you will earn an income because they must work with industry. And that is where we are trying to tie this with industry. So we are just going to start. It's a pilot in 12 schools, 5 broad subject categories, because we have to see whether we don't want to spend a lot of money on equipment. And so you can see we want to spend money on agriculture, technical skills, beauty and events, building and construction, media and entertainment. If you want to know how we got to this, you can ask me later, but I assure you that it was taken very thoughtfully, taking into consideration the schools where the students are, the major type of living they have in that environment, their own personal interests, and so on. But to make these courses more exciting, we are going to now teach the bottom. You can see what's at the bottom. We are not just going to teach them how to be a plumber. Give me 2 minutes. If I'm done, I can see. We are not just going to teach them to be plumbers. We are also going to include financial literacy, entrepreneurship, communication, marketing and sales, and digital literacy. We'll teach all these as well, and we've been looking for partners. I just got back from Finland, and we are going to have partners. We are going to get a grant. They'll help us work through, especially the bottom, that bottom layer. So if you are going to be a plumber, you must learn all these. You must learn to negotiate. We'll teach English, because they must be very literate. They are not literate enough, we find, at that stage. In fact, one of their frustrations in leaving school is they cannot cope with senior secondary subjects. When you cannot read well, who is talking about circulatory system or alimentary canal to you? So these are some of the things that we want to do. I could go, it's a big project, and we plan to start in January. We're working behind the scenes with, it's a public-private sector intervention. Our chairman is from the private sector. We're half public, half private. And this is what we're trying to do, to ensure that at least we do have children who leave school with something. It's very sad when you spend 12 years and at the end, you cannot even make a living. So I think I've summarized what I have to say. There's a lot more to be said, but thank you very much for listening.